What's up, Thrashers, and welcome back once again to the Thrash Maniac 99 YouTube channel, and I am back with yet another album review. And while I did the Rivers of Nile review before this one, this was my most anticipated album for the weekend of May 30th. And I am talking about the latest offering from The Haunted, Songs of Last Resort. This also, like I said, came out on May 30th, this time on Century Media Records, and this is their 10th studio full-length overall. I've been a fan of this band ever since I heard their self-titled debut album quite a long time ago, like almost 10 years ago now. Probably not as long as that, but relatively close. And, well, I've not checked out many of their albums, like I have Made Me Do It and One Kill Wonder. I believe I have Revolver as well. I hadn't really checked out much of their recent output. That a.k.a. England, who's one of my favorite Metal Gear YouTube guys, has been in the band for now 12 years at this point. And this is my first sit-down with a full album that featured a.k.a. England on guitars, and I can go ahead and say he's a perfect addition to the band, for damn sure. And of course, for those who have been living under a rock, this is a kind of a supergroup. It features current and former members of, like, At the Gates and The Resistance, Face Down, a bunch of different bands, but it's primarily At the Gates members, like Jonas Bjorler, Adrian Erlandson, but you also have Patrick Jensen, who's also in bands like Witchery and a bunch of others, and of course Marco Arrow on vocals, and a.k.a. England on lead guitars. So yeah, pretty good lineup of musicians and badassery right there. And these guys, it's kind of hard to describe them. I've always kind of called them a thrash band, considering, you know, the self-titled debut was an awesome late 90s thrash album, and then even Made Me Do It, still very thrashy. One Kill Wonder, still very thrashy. Then after that, they kind of go through like almost like a groove metal kind of sound, and then recently they've kind of gone back to their thrashier roots. And this album, I think, is pretty much, for the most part, very thrashy, but also still plenty of groove going on here. But I don't think I would necessarily call this a groove metal album. I would still say this is a thrash metal album that has a little more melody, not quite like melodic death metal, but just more melody than I would perhaps associate with this band's earlier stuff. But we kick off with the track Warhead, and it immediately unleashes into thrash metal insanity, and Marco's vocals sound just as feral now as they did back in the day. And of course, a lot of these thrashy riffs you get on this album certainly remind me a lot of bands like Sepultura and Slayer, Creator, and even modern bands like Warbringer and older Evil. Like, it's just kind of like a nice hodgepodge of all that stuff. But of course, what I do enjoy about a lot of these thrash songs on this album, they'll still bring in a little bit of groove to kind of break up the speed a little bit. And it even continues that way within Fire Reborn, except the thrashiness is a little more sinister, and there's even some like really cool tribal groove going on here, and melodic triplet chugs. Eerie melodies kind of get peppered in for a little bit of atmosphere. And yeah, as far as like the thrashier songs like Death to the Crown, Hell is Wasted on the Dead, Through the Fire, those songs in particular all still unleash like a more sinister vibe. It's a lot more furious. I would say especially Death to the Crown, like there's some awesome tremolo riffs, and it definitely made me think of Creator. More like modern Creator than anything else, but also some like really cool like stomping gallops. And then as well with going back to Hell is Wasted on the Dead, probably the most evil sounding song on the album. It sounds very much in a vein of Slayer a little bit, but done in a more modern style. Like the tremolo riffs are particularly nasty, and then you get to Through the Fire, where it's like getting back to a little more of a visceral onslaught. Even some like really cool, I want to say downstroke guitar parts, because it sounds like sounds like Patrick and Ola are really going to town on some of those downstrokes. Even some triplet gallops to kind of add a little bit more like all over the place. But one thing that definitely does come out more is, again, a little more melody than, say, the earlier stuff. Like, To Bleed Out, it's very much like a big melodic triplet swing with chug and groove. I would say this song kind of reminds me of like Pantera, Lamb of God, like that kind of style. And then Unbound, this one goes for a little more of a punky snarl. Like there's punky riffs, D beats just all over the place, but still keeping chug and groove alive. And even some really cool melodies and harmonies show up here. And then Collateral Damage, this one just goes for the most part, just straight up chug. It's a chug-a-thon of a song, but you even get like little atonal melodies to just kind of add a little more of a creepy vibe, like almost like Slender Man is approaching you whenever it slows down, and it's like, oh god, don't scare me to death and kill me. But it does get a little thrashy towards the end, I will say. Labyrinth of Lies, this one honestly goes for some more groove, and there's also some more melody going on here. Even glorious harmonies on the solo section, which I would be remiss to ignore the lead work on this album. Ola England is a master of guitar, and you can tell he worships at the altar of like Dimebag Darrell, John Petrucci, all sorts of players, and he does a phenomenal job with not only providing shred but also adding more melody within the lead work and even harmonizing the leads, which adds a lot more flavor to the lead work. And then the closer, Letters of Last Resort, for the most part it's like spoken word, and it's like a tribal groove. It's chuggy, it's groovy, nasty bass line from Jonas, and I would be remiss to talk about the breakdowns. You get quite a few breakdowns on this album, like Death to the Crown starts off with a melody that leads into the breakdown, and then Through the Fire and Collateral Damage in particular, those are just mean. Even Letters of Last Resort has a very mean breakdown on top of it too. But the big standout for me on this album would be the song Salvation Recalled. It's thrashy once again, but it's more melodic thrash, again bringing back some aspects of Creator. There's some really cool, like, almost classic metal gallops, and the lead section here, quite somber. And I think it was probably the most beautiful lead Ola put down on this album. Production-wise, it was mixed by Jens Bogren, so you know what you're going to get when it comes down to the mix, and it's an awesome mix, great production. It still sounds heavy, still everything audible. The only minor nitpick I have about this album would be the interlude Blood Clots. I feel like that could have been like the beginning of Salvation Recalled. It could have just been added to that song instead of being its own separate track, because it's got clean melodies or some chug in it. I think it would have been a great lead-in to the remainder of Salvation Recalled, but that's just a very minor nitpick. Other than that, every song fucking ripped on this album. I'm going to give this a 4.5 out of 5. This is some badass shit from The Haunted. No other complaints other than just that interlude, but oh my god, this album rules. So if you are a fan of The Haunted, or also if you're fans of bands like Creator, Slayer, Old Sepultura, dare I say even like Warbringer, earlier Evil, to a lesser extent Pantera, Lamb of God, and even The Crown, check this out. But of course, those are just my opinions. What did you guys think? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. But until next time, thank you for watching, keep your horns high, and your dreams wet.